UNLV built their roster through the transfer portal this offseason, and they are going to be starting 18 seniors across the board this season, which has got to be one of the highest ratios for all of college football. Overall, the team was built pretty well, I think, by Dan Mullen all through the transfer portal. And they have a lot of guys coming in who can make an instant impact, a lot of guys coming from bigger schools who didn't get as much playing time there. So it's not an easy team to predict, but we are pretty confident that UNLV will be one of the best teams in the Mountain West this season. It starts off with a game against FCS Idaho State. That one should be a win before a road trip to Sam Houston. And the Bearcats probably not going to be very good this season. They had an impressive year last year, but most of the team is now gone, and we just don't expect them to really replicate that whatsoever. So UNLV should win this game as well in week one to move to 2-0.
First real test of the season comes in week 2 against UCLA. And the big story with the Bruins is that Nico Iamaleava is now the starting quarterback there after transferring from Tennessee for more NIL money. And he definitely raises the floor for UCLA going into next season. But the weapons surrounding him are not nearly good enough for UCLA to really be that competitive of a team going into next year. They're still a Power Four team, and it is going to be a tough game for this UNLV team, especially since it's early on in the season with so many transfers coming in so many key positions. So this could be an interesting game. As you see, it is a 50% chance here. But we're going to lean with the home team here just because UNLV in the past has been pretty competitive overall as a group of 5 team. And with UCLA probably starting off a little bit slow in Nico's tenure, especially with the weapons they have, I think UNLV can get the job done here and move to 3-0. But once again, this really could go either way. If UCLA is just the bigger, stronger, faster team because they are a Power Four program, then yeah, sure, UCLA can get the win, but I think UNLV should overall be the better team here. They do have a bye week after the UCLA game before facing Miami, Ohio on the road. And the Red Hawks are going to be in an interesting spot this year. They were second in the MAC last year behind another Ohio school in the Bobcats, but they have so much more to replace from this season. They are very similar to UNLV, as in they have built their team through the transfer portal after so many key departures, including their starting quarterback. So Miami is going to be a lot different than they were last season. I don't think they will be quite as good as they were. Still a pretty competitive team. But overall, I do think UNLV is bringing in a little bit more talent through the transfer portal. Like I said, very comparable, but I think UNLV has been proven over the past couple seasons to really be the better team overall. Even though this is going to be a road trip, we are going to take UNLV to get the win.
After that second bye week, it is a road trip to Wyoming. This one going to be a night game. And I think it's going to be honestly pretty solid. Wyoming, though, hasn't had the same level of success since, the Josh Allen days. A little bit after that they did, but really just not the same program that they once were. I don't think Wyoming's going to be very good this season. And just UNLV should be able to run away with this one, even though it's on the road. There's just not much of a home field advantage or anything to worry about. I really think UNLV is just the better team. We talked about how many seniors they have on this team. They're going to be very experienced. And by this point in the season, I think that they would have built that experience playing together as well. And with 18 seniors, that is something that is going to be very, very strong. Then it's Air Force, and the Falcons are the worst out of the service academies. Army and Navy both should be better this year, even though I think Air Force is probably a little bit closer to Army. Just not going to be very good. Again, they don't bring in much through the transfer portal, if anything. And I just would be shocked if Air Force won this game. UNLV has the home field advantage as well. There's really nothing to talk about for this Air Force team. I would be shocked if they could pull this upset off, and making a bowl game is going to be a tough one for them.
The next week is probably the toughest game of UNLV's schedule, a road trip to face the defending Mountain West champs in the Boise State Broncos. And Boise State is going to be a little different this year, considering Ashton Genty is now in the NFL and was the focal point of their offense last year. But they have a great running back replacing him and are returning so much other starting production on this offense. Maddox Madsen is the starting quarterback once again. The receiving room is pretty much the same from last year. A couple of transfers coming in, but the key guys are there. And defensively, they did get a little bit better as well. I do think Boise State has a really solid chance of going back to back in the Mountain West. UNLV will play them tough. This is going to be a good team despite all the transfer portal acquisitions they've made. The people they have returning from last year, though, are still very good, too. Jaden Thomas, the returning running back from last year, had 918 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns. Having Jaden Thomas returning, considering how much UNLV uses their running backs, it's going to be a big addition to this team. And then the wide receiver room, they have Jaden Bradley returning, who, while he didn't have a ton of receptions last year, he is still a monster player. He's 6'4", and that is going to pair perfectly with a transfer wide receiver they have coming in Troy Omeire, who is also 6'4". So they're going to have some big guys for Alex Orji, their transfer quarterback coming in from Michigan, to use. So this could end up being a close game like we saw last year, but I think Boise State overall just has more returning talent and will be the better team here, especially at home. So UNLV will drop their first game of the season before going into their final bye week.
And then it's New Mexico, and the Lobos are losing their starting quarterback, Devin Dampier. He transferred to Utah, taking that step up to the Power Four. And I think because of that, New Mexico is going to struggle quite a bit. Devin Dampier was a really, really good quarterback for them last season. Finding someone to replace him is not easy. And due to that, that's going to cause New Mexico to struggle quite a bit this season. So we think that this should be a pretty easy game for UNLV to bounce back and hop back into the win column. And then it's a road trip to Colorado State. And Colorado State's typically one of the better teams in the Mountain West. They don't win the conference very often, but you'll generally see them in the top five. And we would expect them to be around a top five team once again in the Mountain West, which is why I think that they can give UNLV a little bit of trouble on the road. This is definitely a game that the Rebels need to watch out for. That being said, we really trust the fact that this team has a ton of experience and that they are going to be really solid overall. And that's why I think they are going to pick up this win on the road, although it might be a little bit closer than some people expect. Colorado State definitely can give them a tough match.
Especially with Braden Fowler Nicolosi returning as the starting quarterback. He's been there for the past 2 seasons, and he has been very, very solid for the Rams in his tenure there. But they are losing a good amount of their wide receiver room, who has been very, very solid since Fowler Nicolosi has been there. So that's going to be the biggest reason why we think UNLV is going to be able to handle Colorado State on the road. Utah State is the next game up, and it is a home game for the Rebels. And Utah State is losing a good amount of their receiver room from last year, particularly they are losing their star wide receiver from last year in Jalen Royals, but they do return their starting quarterback, or at least their starting quarterback for part of the season, in Bryson Barnes, who has great dual threat capability. So this is another game that UNLV might have to watch out for. Not going to be as difficult as Colorado State since this is a home game for UNLV, but definitely one that could be a little bit of a trap game coming out of that tough road trip against Colorado State. But overall, with the amount that Utah State has lost, particularly on the defense as well, UNLV is going to be the better team. So they will get the win here. And then against Hawaii the following week. Hawaii is always a fun team to play against, especially if you get the chance to play against Hawaii on the road. But Hawaii is coming to UNLV, and that's going to be a tough road trip for the Rainbow Warriors. And overall, I don't think they have the talents to compete with a team like the Rebels, even if they have built up a solid roster using the transfer portal or returning players, they're not getting nearly as much talent as UNLV is just because the programs are so different. So UNLV will once again be the better team here and will get the win, moving them to 10-1.
And then it's a road trip to Nevada, and Nevada just isn't very good. They weren't last season. The Wolfpack, again, this year shouldn't be very good. We're not expecting them to do much at all in Mountain West play. Finished near the bottom of the conference. And really, UNLV should run away with this game to end the season. Maybe they get caught looking ahead to the Mountain West Championship, but because the game is against Nevada, I highly doubt that. Which puts the Rebels at 11-1, the exact same as our way too early prediction. We projected them at 8.75 wins. That has come up to 9.3, 6.1, and 1.9 in Mountain West play. And the floor going to be 9-3. Like we talked about a couple of those matchups that could potentially go the other way. Colorado State was one of them. There's UCLA in the non-conference. There's a few things that could potentially go wrong here for UNLV, but I still think that they're going to have a really great season no matter what. Although 9-3 certainly would not get them into the college football playoffs. The ceiling, though, is undefeated. They have the talent to beat Boise State this season. And that would set up for a really interesting rematch in the Mountain West Championship if they were able to do that. A spot on the college football playoffs almost guaranteed in that case. So we have UNLV going 11-1, which does put them in line even now for them to potentially make the playoffs this season, but they would need to win the Mountain West Championship, which means you're going to have to come back once we finish doing all of our predictions to see whether or not we think they can actually pull it off. So please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.